What's up, Illumineers? Welcome back to another Lorcana video here on InkSpot Games. And just recently, just within the last day or so, from the recording of this video, Lorcana has revealed its next set after the first chapter, and that is Rise of the Floodborn, or some people are calling it Chapter 2, but Rise of the Floodborn is what the next set is going to be called. And in our last video, we took a look at certain products that are going to be released, and there's some new star decks, some new gift boxes, things like that. But today we're going to look at some of the individual cards that were spoiled, and I'm just going to kind of react to them and give my opinion on them on first glance. And maybe we'll see what kind of effect they'll have on the game as a whole. But before we get into that, please be sure to like this video, share with your friends, subscribe to the channel. We have passed 200 subscribers, and I just want to keep this channel growing so we can keep providing more Lorcana content. So if you're interested, be sure to subscribe, like, all that fun stuff. Now, let's take a look at some of these brand new cards. The first card we have here is an Amber Mickey Mouse friendly face. It is a 6-cost inkable character with 1 attack and 6 blocking. You can collect 3 lore with this character, which is pretty good. And it has Glad You're Here, which reads, whenever this character quests, you pay 3 less ink for the next character you play this turn. So this actually can be pretty good sort of in the late game when you have some larger characters to play and maybe you're using up your ink. It collects 3, which is really good. So I'll be interested to see kind of how this card can be used again, sort of in like that late game stage. So you can kind of gain advantage on your opponent on the board with more characters, getting more abilities, things like that. So I think this card definitely has potential. It's in Amber, so Amber likes ramping up the field with cards like Rockstar Stitch and a lot of its low-cost characters. You can play a Amber Rapunzel for 3 less ink, which is actually insane. There's some crazy things you can do with this. There's some crazy characters you can play, and 3 less is actually a huge difference. Like, that can be the difference in the game. So I think that this card actually has a lot of potential, and I think could very well see play if used correctly. We go to the next one. We have another Amber character, and this is the Queen. So we have our Amber Queen, Commanding Presence. She is 5 cost for ink, is inkable, has 4 attack, 3 blocking, and this character is a shift 2, which means you only have to pay 2 ink to play this on top of another queen, which right now, as we know, is just the Amethyst Queen. But the effect here reads, who is the fairest? Whenever this character quests, a chosen opposing character gets -4 attack this turn, and chosen character gets +4 attack this turn. So essentially, this card is really good at taking out larger opponents when you're challenging them, maybe even with some of your smaller characters, because one of the tough trade-offs is if you're trying to clear someone else's board, sometimes you have to trade your character with those. This -4, that could bring a character down to 0 or 1, like really, really low, and it'll make getting rid of your opponent's characters a lot easier while keeping yours on the board. And the fact that she quests for 2 helps as well, and not that expensive to play, only costs 5 ink and is only a shift 2. So I think this card will see play and will be really good kind of in these situations where you need to take out your opponent's board, but you don't want to give up your board presence and your card advantage as well. So I think this card is really good. Again, you can not take damage from the opponent's character, or because you're getting +4, you can take out a really big character with a lot of blocking. So I think this card is actually really, really strong. So we got the next one here, and we have a new song, which is Zero to Hero. Not inkable, costs 2 ink. Obviously, character with 2 or more can sing it for free. Count the number of characters you have in play. You may pay that amount of less ink for the next character you play this turn. So spending 2 on this song isn't the worst thing in the world, depending on where you're at with ink. But if you're one of those decks that can get a decent amount of characters out early, maybe a 1-drop and a 2-drop, and you're sort of building up resources, then this kind of card can really help you with increasing your board presence and increasing card advantage, especially if you sing this for free and you have basically a lot of ink to save with this card. So I think this card's actually pretty good. It almost reminds me of the one like Maui action where you spend 3 to play a character for free. This is more based on what's already on your board, so you wouldn't want to use it early. But if you find yourself with an appropriate amount of ink in your inkwell and you can sing this song for free, which it only costs 2, so you most likely will, you can find yourself increasing your advantage on your opponent. Solid card, solid song. Next, we have a new Elsa Gloves Off. Is a 4 cost that is inkable, 3 attack, 4 blocking, and then basically is one of the big challengers. So challenger +3. Actually, having 7 attack, 4 willpower for a 4 cost inkable character is actually pretty solid. It's actually not bad at all, and she does quest for 1, which is fine. But this is actually, I think this is a card that I think that Amethyst could have really used, because you have Rafiki, who is a 3/3 and costs 3, but Rafiki is not inkable. And I think it's good having sort of a bigger character that can do a lot of damage in the Amethyst deck, again, to maintain control of the board. This doesn't have anything like Rush or Reckless, which but I think if you're trying to build a deck in Amethyst where you want to establish a character that's hard to deal with, this card will be okay. I think it's fine. I don't know how much of a difference this is going to make in Amethyst builds, but it's definitely an option to look into. Alright, next we have, and I believe he is on the cover of the starter decks, we have Merlin, which is Shapeshifter, a 4 cost inkable character, 1 attack, 5 blocking. Battle of Wits is his effect. Whenever one of your other characters is returned to your hand from play, this character gets +1 lore this turn. So I'm going to make the assumption that there's going to be more cards in this upcoming set that bounces your character back to your hand or something, because there's not really a ton right now. I'm sure there's probably going to be more that bounce that will make this worthwhile, I guess. I mean, 4 costs for 2 lore, not much attack, a lot of blocking. We'll see about this card. I think it's hard to make a judgment on it right now because I just don't know what else is going to be built around him. Again, he's like I believe he's the cover of one of the starter decks, so I have to imagine that they developed a strategy around him a little bit. So we'll have to see. I don't know how strong this is going to be. Maybe I'll be completely wrong and this card's crazy, but right now I'm not getting that sense. But again, there's still more cards that we don't know about yet, and maybe it'll synergize with Merlin much better than he looks. Alright, the next card, my favorite art of the reveals we have so far, Winnie the Pooh, 5 cost, he is inkable, 2 lore, 5 attack, 5 blocking. I mean, again, another kind of bigger card for Amethyst, which I think is something Amethyst needed, and also this and the Elsa are also inkable, which is nice. This, I could see this possibly being in Amethyst decks, just because like 5 isn't an insane cost at all, really, and just him being so big and collecting 2 lore, I think this is a very solid card all around. We'll see how much of a difference it makes for Amethyst, but this, I just think this is the kind of card that Amethyst could really use, because getting resources in Amethyst isn't the hardest thing in the world, and I just think having a big guy on the board that can collect 2 lore and even kind of help control the opponent's board, I think will be really beneficial for Amethyst. Like I said, probably my favorite art. That's really, really cool. This looks awesome. And this is actually, again, it may not be like the greatest card ever, but it's one of my favorite cards of the reveal. Next, we have an item, the Sorcerer Spellbook, non-inkable, 3 cost, and the effect is knowledge. So you need to spend 1 ink to gain 1 lore. Again, another Amethyst card, and Amethyst has a lot of good items. You have the Magic Mirror, you have Ursula's Cauldron, you have the Pocket Watch. Amethyst already has a lot of good items, and I think this I could see being like a one of, just because it's not inkable. I mean, spending 1 ink to gain 1 lore like isn't a bad trade-off. I just, when you're just talking about like the difference between 1 lore and not 1 lore, it's hard to say how much of a difference that'll actually make. Like, yeah, this card could theoretically get you the 20 lore quicker if you have enough resources, or maybe you play multiple of this and risk having a 3 cost non-inkable card to gain more lore. But it looks good. I just don't know how much Amethyst is going to need it. You know, I think it'll help, but if you're going to include this in an Amethyst deck, maybe just 1 would help. It's hard because it's not inkable. If this card was inkable, I would feel much different about it. But we'll see. We'll have to kind of test it out and see how much of a difference this actually makes in Amethyst. Next, all right, we have one of the sort of highlights of this reveal, and this is the new Belle, Hidden Archer. Cost 5, not inkable, a shift 3, we'll get to that in a second. 3 attack, 3 blocking, can get 3 lore. And again, only a shift 3 to play on top of one of your characters named Belle. I wonder if there's going to be another Belle that's lower cost, because we have the we have both Sapphire Bells that are also, I think they're pretty sure they're both 5. But yeah, it's only a shift 3, which is really good. And the effect is Tiny Arrows. Whenever this character is challenged, the challenging character's player discards all cards in their hand. All right. So this card is going to be a pain in the neck to deal with, because this is just like what Ember likes to do with a lot of his cards is make your opponents decide, well, do I want to challenge them and banish them, or else this happens. Think of Flynn Rider, where if you want to challenge him, you need to discard a card. This makes you discard all your cards, and only costs 5. It's only a shift 3, and it gets 3 lore. This card is insane. I think this is a huge boost for Emerald that already has cards that are pretty difficult to deal with, you know, like this and Cusco and things like that. I think this will really ramp up Emerald, and this is one of the best cards in this reveal. I think this card's absolutely crazy. Next we have Raya, and for Ruby, a 4 cost, 5 attack, 3 defense, which isn't bad. Gains 1 lore. I don't know how worth it's gonna be playing her in Ruby when you already have characters like Maui in there that has Reckless and doesn't cost that much more. Like, I don't know, collects 1 lore, which is nice, but that's it. I just don't think this is gonna be much of a difference maker in Ruby. We have another item called Dinner Bell, 4 ink that's not inkable, with the effect Ruby, with the effect that you know what happens. You have to spend 2 ink to exert this. Draw cards equal to the damage on chosen character of yours, then banish them. So draw power for Ruby, which Ruby doesn't really have any. This is interesting because essentially, like, if you're in a kind of game state where you know one of your characters is about to sort of bite it next turn, you can Dinner Bell and at least get something out of it. Maybe if your character already has damage on them, you quest and then use this to draw the amount of cards equal to the damage, and then you get rid of it. The trade-off is obviously like your opponent isn't damaging any of their characters to get rid of yours, but card advantage is so huge in Lorcana, and I think that Ruby having some kind of draw power is very, very important. 4 is steep, plus the 2 ink it costs you to play it. But again, if you're playing like a Ruby Sapphire deck, a deck that can ramp up on ink very quickly, this card might actually really help. It's like a worse, in some ways it's like a worse Magic Mirror, I guess, because you're losing the character. But again, when it comes to Ruby, there's so many blowout cards that you need to have access to, like Dragonfire, Be Prepared, Maleficent, Maui, all of those that you need to draw. And this might be a pretty solid piece of support for Ruby to finally get at least some draw power. I'm interested to see how well this works. Next, we have a new Sapphire, and this is Gaston, Intellectual Powerhouse. Interesting. So cost 6, not inkable, 4 attack, 4 blocking. A shift 4, there's a lot of new shift characters. I believe that's the whole point of like Floodborns, that they shift. So a shift 4 and developed brain. When you play this character, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may put 1 into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your deck in order. So more draw power for Sapphire. I think like this is really good with the Ruby Sapphire deck, because that deck already has a Ruby Gaston that you can shift this on top and draw cards. So those I think will synergize very well. 3 lore, which is really good, not bad attack defense stats. Yeah, it's not inkable, but this card's pretty solid actually. This card's actually really good. Just more draw power. Again, we are going up against decks that are Amethyst that can draw a million cards in a turn. I think adding more draw power to these other colors is a really, really good thing. So good card. I think you'll see this in Sapphire decks and in Ruby Sapphire decks. And this is the card that has had the internet kind of going a little bit crazy, and that is Cinderella Stout-Hearted. Cost 7, is inkable, has 5 and 5, is a shift 5, so basically like a steel version of the Aladdin shift 5 that costs 7. And we have a new keyword here, which is resist. Plus 2. Damage dealt to this character is reduced by 2. So essentially this card is grab your sword proof. This card is fire the cannons proof. This card is very hard, will be very hard to deal with when trying to get rid of it from a damage perspective. Obviously things like Hades, Let It Go, Dragonfire, Be Prepared, Maleficent, there are going to be still a million ways to remove this, but in terms of just pure damage, this will be difficult to deal with. And we do have another effect here, the Singing Sword. Whenever you play a song, this character may challenge ready characters this turn. So we already have a rule-breaking card here, because obviously you can't challenge characters unless they're exerted. This card breaks that rule, and that is ridiculous. And obviously with the resist, it'll take much longer for this card to get banished, and it gains for 3 lore. This card just kind of does everything, and I'm just imagining pairing this with the giant Tinkerbell in steel decks that is already doing damage, and then this card is just taking them at, like, I think this card is crazy. I think that this card really boosts any kind of steel strategy. Again, it's a shift 5, it's inkable. 7 isn't a ridiculous cost, it has good attack and blocking stats. 3 lore. I think this is the best card that we've seen so far. Alright, now we have Tiana, Celebrating Princess. Princess and the Frog stuff, that's cool. Cost 4, not inkable, 1 and 4. This also has resist, so a resist plus 2. Damage dealt to this character is reduced by 2. Can gain 2 lore. What you give is what you get is the effect. while this character is exerted and you have no cards in your hand, opponents can't play actions. So this is another kind of floodgate type card, very similar to like Mother Gothel, where whenever Gothel is exerted, your opponent can't quest. This is very similar. Whenever this is exerted and you have no cards in your hand, they can't play actions, which is really good because you have cards in Seal like Beast Mirror that you benefit from not having cards in your hand. This is also the case, and it gains 2 lore. Adding a sense of sort of this floodgatey control to Steel, I think Steel is getting some really good cards here. Steel is getting some really good cards. I think Steel is going to be insane. Not because like if this is the case, if you have both this and the Cinderella on board and you can't play your actions to get rid of them, what are you gonna do? You're kind of screwed at that point. And plus this has resist, so it's even harder to get off the board. Tiana is really good. Again, Steel is now kind of turning into, it was always kind of like this aggressive aggro strategy, but now it has some control elements to it as well. And the last thing I do want to look at here is the Lorcana 100 Collector's Edition, just to take a look at some of the alternate art cards. As we can see, they have signatures of the artists on here, which is really cool because it's being drawn by actual people who work in like Disney animation. I'm just telling you right now, this product is going to sell out fast, just saying. But yeah, so this was just a little overview and reaction to the cards that have been revealed so far. I'm pretty sure I haven't missed any. And yeah, I would like to know, what is your favorite card or most anticipated card coming out in the next set of Lorcana? I would love to hear what you have to say. I'm excited. I'm so glad that we're seeing new stuff and seeing kind of where the game is going. And I can't wait to see more in the near future. So yeah, Illumineers, I'll see you on the next one. Later.